February 18th, something happened in Bahrain that changes everything. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. One team lost 4 critical hours in the garage. One world champion refused to drive. Another team completed over 150 laps like a machine. And none of that was fully explained on the broadcast. Because while you were watching lap times, engineers were whispering. Drivers were frustrated. And one garage looked dangerously calm. Ferrari showed explosive one-lap speed. Red Bull had a hydraulic failure and Verstappen never got in the car. McLaren quietly set the fastest overall time and barely degraded their tires. But here is the detail that really matters. The most important story from today was not who topped the timing sheets. It was who looked in control and who looked nervous. And if you miss what happened behind those garage doors on February 18th, you will completely misunderstand this season. Subscribe now. Because what F1 TV did not show you today from Bahrain could define the championship before it even begins. Let's begin with Ferrari. Because on the surface, it looked simple. Fast lap. Strong morning. Positive headlines. But that's not the real story. Charles Leclerc went out early. Cool track. Clean air. And immediately the SF26 looked sharp on traction. Out of turn 1. Out of turn 4. Out of turn 10. The electric deployment was instant. No hesitation. No snap. His best lap, a 1 minute, 31.750 on the C3 compound, became the reference of the morning session. And that matters. Because Ferrari did not just bring minor tweaks to Bahrain. They brought what insiders are calling an anti-crisis package. The side pods were bulkier. The engine cover more open. Cooling gills exposed around 60%. That tells you something. They are fighting heat. Aggressively. But underneath the bodywork is where things get serious. There is a new floor edge design. A longitudinal slot along the outer section. That detail was requested. Specifically, Lewis Hamilton wanted more rear stability when the car runs low to the ground. He wanted the airflow sealed better at high load. Ferrari listened. And during Leclerc's push laps, the rear looked planted. Stable. Predictable. But we will come back to that stability later. Because when the afternoon came, the picture changed. Hamilton did not chase headlines. He did long runs. Heavy fuel. C2 compound. That is where championships are decided. At first, the pace looked controlled. Measured. Then, after 12 laps, the drop came. Almost 0.8 per lap. Rear tire degradation. Still there. Still aggressive. And here is the part most people missed. There were no thermal shutdowns. No power unit panic. No emergency resets. That alone is progress compared to earlier sessions. So Ferrari solved one problem. But maybe not the bigger one. Because if the rear tires fall away over race distance, qualifying speed becomes meaningless. And this is where tension starts to build inside that garage. Privately, Leclerc reportedly said the car has championship potential. If it holds together. That conditional statement is powerful. If it holds together. Hamilton, more cautious, admitted the balance is better. No longer a wild horse. But he also mentioned consistency is still missing compared to Max. Compared to Max. And here is what makes this even more intriguing. There are whispers Ferrari is running conservative engine maps to protect the turbo. Which means we might not have seen the full power today. Or, they are protecting something fragile. Two very different interpretations. And only one of them leads to a title fight. But before we decide which one is true, we need to talk about what happened in the Red Bull garage. Because that completely shifts the balance of power. Now we need to talk about Red Bull. Because what happened in that garage today was not normal. Not for a team that usually operates with absolute control. The morning began quietly. Isaac Hadjar was assigned aero correlation work. Short runs. Sensor checks. System validation. Routine. Then, on lap 14, everything stopped. Hydraulic failure. Massive leak in the power steering system. The car pulled over. Session interrupted. And this is where the clock started hurting them. 4 hours in the garage. 4 hours of disassembly. 4 hours of lost data. 4 hours watching rivals collect information. That matters more than a headline lap time. Because testing is not about glory. It is about understanding. And Red Bull understood nothing for most of the day. Now here is where things become sensitive. Max Verstappen was scheduled to drive in the afternoon. He never did. Official explanation. Better to give mileage to the junior driver once the car was repaired. But that version feels incomplete. Because insiders noticed something. Max was not relaxed. He was not smiling. He was watching. And when the RB22 finally returned to the circuit, it was still Hadjar in the cockpit. That is unusual. Very unusual. Red Bull does not waste Verstappen track time lightly. So either the repair left uncertainties, or they did not want Max giving immediate feedback on something unfinished. Both options are uncomfortable. Now let's talk about the car itself. When it was running, it looked stable. Extremely stable. High-speed corners. No visible porpoising. Clean platform. And the DRS effect remains frightening. Around 18 km per hour gained when open. That is still best in class. But here is the hidden problem. The packaging of this car is incredibly tight. Extreme. Designed for aerodynamic efficiency. But mechanically complex. When something breaks, access is difficult. Repairs take longer. Today proved that. And testing days are limited. Every hour counts. Losing one afternoon with your reigning champion is not minor. It is strategic damage. But here is the deeper layer. If Red Bull is already facing reliability issues at this stage, how aggressive is their concept this year? Are they pushing the limits again? Or did they reach too far? Because we have seen this before. Dominant car. Then small cracks appear. Then pressure builds. And when pressure builds, Verstappen demands answers. Now compare that to McLaren's garage today. Calm. Methodical. Efficient. That contrast might be more important than any lap time. Red Bull still has the aerodynamic platform. Still has the best driver on the grid. But today, for the first time in a while, they looked reactive. Not proactive. And that shift, even if small, can change a season. But we are not done. Because while Red Bull lost time and Ferrari showed flashes of brilliance, one team quietly executed a near-perfect day. And what they demonstrated might be the most dangerous signal of all. Now let's talk about McLaren. Because while Ferrari showed flashes, and Red Bull dealt with frustration, McLaren executed. Quietly. Precisely. Relentlessly. 158 laps completed between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. No breakdowns. No long garage delays. No visible panic. That alone is powerful. But it goes deeper than mileage. Norris went out in the morning and immediately looked comfortable. Not fighting the car. Not correcting mid-corner. And when the track conditions improved, he delivered the fastest overall lap of the day. 1 minute, 30.450. Clean. Controlled. Confident. But here is the key. They did not celebrate it. No exaggerated reactions. No dramatic gestures. Because the real message was not that lap. It was consistency. In the afternoon, Piastri focused on long runs. Heavy fuel. Extended stints. And his lap times barely moved. Almost flat across 20 laps. That is not normal in Bahrain. This circuit destroys rear tires. High traction zones. Harsh acceleration. Ferrari dropped off. McLaren did not. And that detail changes the whole picture. Because a car that is slightly slower in qualifying, but stable over a race distance, wins championships. Now look at the technical side. They introduced a specific low-drag rear wing for this circuit. Optimized for straight-line efficiency. Not extreme. Not radical. Balanced. The MCL40 does not dominate any single metric. It does not have Ferrari's explosive traction. It does not have Red Bull's DRS gain. But it scores high everywhere. 9 out of 10 in braking. 9 out of 10 in stability. 9 out of 10 in tire preservation. That combination is dangerous. And here is what most viewers missed. The drivers looked relaxed. Norris described it as the best start to a season they have had in years. Andrea Stella confirmed wind-tunnel correlation matches the track almost perfectly. That sentence is critical. When simulation and reality align, development becomes efficient. Efficient development means faster upgrades. Faster upgrades mean momentum. And momentum in Formula One is everything. Now compare that calm environment to the tension we saw at Red Bull. Or the cautious optimism inside Ferrari. McLaren did not look like they were chasing. They looked prepared. And when a team looks prepared in testing, it usually means they have not shown everything yet. But here is the question that should make every rival nervous. If this is their baseline, what happens when they turn the engine up? Because today, they did not look desperate. They looked in control. And sometimes, control is more intimidating than raw speed. But we are still not at the most concerning situation of the day. Because while McLaren built confidence, another team left Bahrain with something far more dangerous than slow lap times. They left with doubt. Now we need to talk about Aston Martin. Because this was not just a difficult session. This felt structural. The morning started quietly with Lance Stroll. Low expectations. Simple installation runs. But after barely 25 laps, he reported strange vibrations. Not normal vibration. Not track surface feedback. Engine related. The Honda power unit immediately became the focus. The car returned to the garage, panels off. Engineers crowded around the rear. And the atmosphere shifted. Then came the afternoon. Fernando Alonso got in. This was supposed to be the reset. The recovery run. 12 laps later, limp mode. Again. Power limited. Systems protecting themselves. And this is where it becomes serious. Because they were not running aggressive maps. They were already conservative. To protect temperatures. To protect integration. They even switched to an emergency bodywork specification. Wider cooling layout. More open gills. It looked heavier. Less refined. Still not enough. On the straights, the AMR26 looked slow. Noticeably slow. In medium speed corners, it looked planted. But heavy. There was no sign of competitive power deployment. And here is the part the broadcast moved past quickly. Alonso left the circuit early. No extended debrief in front of cameras. No relaxed interviews. He left. That tells you something. Because when a driver like Alonso feels potential, he stays. He analyzes. He pushes. Today, it felt different. Now add the rumors. There are whispers of a crisis-level meeting tonight between Lawrence Stroll and senior Honda executives. Some are even suggesting Aston Martin could request regulatory permission to change certain engine components without penalty. If that conversation is happening this early, it means confidence is already fragile. And testing is supposed to build confidence. Instead, today built doubt. Doubt about reliability. Doubt about power. Doubt about integration. And here is the dangerous part. When you start a season solving survival issues instead of chasing performance, you fall behind immediately. Because development resources shift. Focus shifts. Energy shifts. And while McLaren is refining balance, and Ferrari is optimizing traction, Aston Martin might still be trying to make the car finish a race distance. That is not a small gap. That is a philosophical gap. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. Ferrari shows speed but carries risk. Red Bull shows potential but lost valuable time. McLaren shows consistency and calm. Aston Martin shows instability. And we still have not fully addressed Mercedes. Because their situation is more subtle. More difficult to read. And sometimes, the hardest team to read is the one hiding the most.